Hello, my name is Tabitha Jacques, and I'm the director of the Dyer Art Center, which is located at RIT and NTID. You may be wondering what the Dyer Art Center is, and it's a very unique gallery in that it collects and exhibits artwork from deaf and hard of hearing artists. Currently, I'm here because I am excited to announce that the MAG, the Memorial Art Gallery, and the Dyer Art Center are collaborating in order to bring this ASL tour to you for the season of Warhol. And our tour guide is Jackie Schertz, who is very experienced docent here at the MAG. So with that, I will turn it over to you, Jackie, and I'll go ahead and video the cowl on the wall wallpaper.
Great. Okay, thank you. I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Jackie Schertz, and I want to welcome you to this tour of selected pieces of the Warhol exhibit. Now, I've chosen several pieces I'll show you, not all of them, but several. And I can't see you, but I know that you are with me. If you have any questions or comments, we have a wonderful opportunity. The director of the Memorial Art Gallery, Jonathan Binstock, who is a Warhol scholar, will be responding to any questions or comments that you can make on the chat feature of Zoom. First, I'd like to give you a little summary of who Andy Warhol was. Andy Warhol was born in 1928 and he died in 1987, the age of 58. Warhol grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and he was very poor family. His parents were immigrants from Czechoslovakia. Andy was a sickly child, and he spent a great deal of time confined to his bed. There, he read popular magazines of the day, and he absorbed American culture. Warhol's creative activities were numerous, and they included painting and printmaking, film and television, sculpture, photography, installation art, modeling, and advertising. There are many contradictions in both the man and his art. Warhol was a social observer, and he exploited commercialism and celebrity. Warhol's work touches on social justice, and at the same time, he throws consumer products in our faces. Andy Warhol saw himself as a misfit, as an outsider, and he was a shy, awkward man, obsessed with skin problems and baldness. he owned about 40 wigs because he wanted to cover up his bald head. With today's proliferation of YouTube and social media, Andy Warhol's quote is more apt than ever. Everyone will be world famous for 15 minutes. And it's so true, right? Andy Warhol made a lot of money from affluent collectors and high-profile commissions of his art, but he can also be credited with bringing art to the masses. He would produce inexpensive prints of his art, so his work was affordable to everyone. Many of Andy Warhol's had for their subject matter iconic people, what was popular, and issues that mirrored American culture. He blurred the line, challenged traditional boundaries of art, and blurred the line between art and business and life. He turned everyday life into art. Now I'd like to look at the cow wallpaper that you all had a glimpse of earlier. This piece was created in 1966. Andy Warhol was really a pioneer of installation art. And these are New Jersey cows taken from a book of agriculture. It combines the historical, pastoral tradition of landscape painting, but he also adds quite a bit of whimsy and a lot of repetition. Cow wallpaper has been reproduced, installed, deinstalled, and thrown away numerous times. It is a cycle of creation and destruction, which utterly epitomizes a factory-like process of production. That repetition here is an element which appears in much of Warhol's work. It really encapsulates his sensitivity and his sensibility. Repetition is something you'll see quite a bit of. The next piece I'd like to show you is called the electric chair. As you can see, these pieces that were created in 1971, the prints were, they're embedded in the cow wallpaper. You see the images of the electric chair. And this print was created from a 1953 photograph taken at Sing Sing prison. The photograph was taken just a few months before the chair, the electric chair, was used in the execution of Julius and Ethel Rosenberg, who were accused of espionage, spying during the Cold War. In 1963, the electric chair was used for the very last time in New York State. The death penalty was actually repealed in New York State in 1965. Capital punishment was done away with in New York State. But one does wonder why Warhol chose this morbid subject. This was during a time when huge debates and demonstrations against capital punishment were happening all over the place. The candy colored scheme of the electric chairs are ironic, right? Given the seriousness of the subject. Clearly ironic, or perhaps Warhol chose those colors to match your sofa. And the juxtaposition of the electric chairs, dark content, superimposed on the wallpaper of cows. The cows, which symbolize the pleasant world of the countryside. Rural life. This contrast leaves the viewer with a confounding and ambivalent classic Warholian sensibility. We will proceed now in our tour and move to the next piece. Now you feel like you're actually in the museum, right? Tabitha's taking us through a walkthrough of the museum. It's wonderful. Graffiti is recognized as art, right? You know, Rochester really did have a subway way back when. I don't know how many of you know that. And here we are. This is Marilyn Monroe. She died in 1962 at the age of 36 due to a drug overdose. This print was created using a still photograph from the film Niagara. Warhol used the same image for many, many paintings and prints, but with all the colors all changed around. This one, with Monroe's face coated in the unnatural shades of mustard and pink, garish colors, not at all natural looking. Warhol was truly a colorist. It's funny, Marilyn Monroe is more remembered for her photographs than for the more than 29 movies in which she appeared. One wonders why. Her face and her figure came to represent the ideal of femininity. It was also commercialized, appearing on cigarette lighters and mugs and anything you can name. This piece, though not overt, gives a nod, a hint to the themes in Andy Warhol's pieces that allude to death and disaster. She died so young. Like I say, it's not overt, it's under the surface. It's there. Warhol, his artwork, you'll see again and again, often alludes to the theme of death and disaster. Right next to Marilyn Monroe, there's a quote I'd like to point out to you of Warhol himself. Art is anything you can get away with. I want you to keep this quote in mind as we look at the next piece, Campbell's Soup. Campbell's Soup was created in 1969. This everyday popular icon utterly launched Warhol's career. The familiarity of the red and white label of Campbell's Soup, it was and is recognizable to most Americans. It is the quintessential American product. It was inexpensive, easy to prepare, and available in any food market. Truly, America is represented by these cans. And rich people and poor people alike ate the same thing. Andy Warhol's hand-printed work. This was hand-printed. And he made it an everyday thing. He made an everyday thing a work of art. Now, you remember the quote we just saw? Art is anything you can get away with. What do you think Warhol was getting away with here? You can type in your chat any questions or comments about that question. And we will move on to the next piece. Everyday things made into art. That's Warhol. The next piece we're going to see is called Myths. For his Myth series, Warhol chose to depict 10 characters from popular culture. Let's identify them for those of you who don't know who they are. We have see Mickey Mouse there. Down below is Mammy. You might remember that image. It was used on pancake syrup bottles, Aunt Jemima, until recently that was absolutely dropped as the company realized that it was an offensive image, giving way to a stereotype that's rooted in American slavery. So the company no longer uses that image on the pancake syrup bottles. In fact, they changed the name. We have Santa Claus here. Let's see. Dracula. Uncle Sam, who we pay our taxes to, you may know. Howdy Doody. He was a puppet And he sat on the knee of a puppeteer, a ventriloquist, who was able to make it look like the puppet was speaking without the puppeteer moving his own lips at all. Here we have the Wicked Witch of the West. This is the actress Margaret Hamilton, who played that role in the film The Wizard of Oz. She was a very bad witch. Let's see, who do we have? We have Superman. Mm-hmm. Oh, yes. This is the star. That's the actress, Greta Garbo. And she's playing the role Mata Hari. Mata Hari was a spy during World War I. And here we have the Shadow, who was Andy Warhol himself, as he injected himself into the vein of pop culture. These screen prints, they all used a technique we call diamond dust, which is fine particles of crushed glass applied to the screen print while the ink was still wet. The result is a shimmering quality on the surface of the print, a glamorous effect. Warhol gathered these figures from comics and movies, and politics, all part of the popular American memory. Warhol pays homage to the characters that were part of his childhood. The Myth series can be seen as a portrait of Warhol's personal America. All right, let's go to our next piece. Muhammad Ali. This was created in 1978. When we think of popular leisure activities in this country, two things that come to mind are sports and art. Muhammad Ali was obviously part of Andy Warhol's series on athletes. He was the heavyweight champion of the world in 1977. And that's why he was chosen for the athlete series. I'm drawn to this piece because my dad was actually a Golden Glove boxer. And he showed me a few moves. And I also remember when I was young, there was a quote from Muhammad Ali that struck me. And I still remember it to this day. He was a big talker. He said, "Float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. Hands can't hit what the eyes can't see." He's a good looking guy, huh? The next piece we're going to see is Vesuvius. Vesuvius was created in 1985, and it was made from a painting from the early 1800s, an Italian painter. The volcano of Vesuvius is a symbol of the relationship, the sensitive relationship between humans and nature over the centuries. The first recorded eruption of this volcano completely buried Pompeii. And that happened in the year 79 AD. Many other painters throughout the years found Vesuvius the ideal subject for showing that relationship between nature and God, destruction and beauty. Artists around the world are drawn to the array of colors, the lava, the land, the sea, and the clouds. The colors are so vibrant. And again, this piece touches on that hint of death and disaster in Warhol's work. Less than a hint, this one. And right next door is this piece. This series is entitled Sunset and was created in 1972. There are a total of 632 prints of this same image. Each one of them is unique. Warhol was commissioned by an architecture firm to decorate the Hotel Marquette in Minneapolis, Minnesota. There were 472 prints that were actually used in the hotel on the walls, and the remaining 160 prints were put into 40 different portfolios of Andy Warhol's. The technique he used was very interesting for these pieces. He had 3 different screens. The first one was for the background color, the second for the sun itself, and the third one, he used a single colored dot pattern, which you can see if you get really close to it. Warhol inked the screens, each of them in a multitude of color combinations. It's astounding just how many different combinations he could come up with in the 632 prints. I wonder which one you like the best out of these 4. Oh, someone said the green one. Okay. I like the one with the contrast, the complementary colors of the red sun and the green background. Okay, let's move on to endangered species. Okay. Endangered Species was created in 1983. Andy Warhol said, and I quote, "I never met an animal I didn't like." Warhol truly loved animals. In the 1950s, he and his mom had several Siamese cats as pets. And in the 1970s, Warhol himself owned a pair of miniature dachshunds. He also collected many, many, many photographs of celebrities with their animals. For example, the famous actress Lauren Bacall with her dog, and many, many others. Warhol's interest in the animal world and nature was really underscored in his will, wherein he specified that a portion of money from his estate be used for environmental conservation. Warhol's Endangered Species series was first shown at the Museum of Natural History in New York City, as well as other natural history museums throughout the US. These prints, which employ a range of complementary and vivid colors that draw the eye, they raised awareness of the issue of these animals' potential extinction. He brought awareness to the issue. Let's go through these pictures and identify them as our respect. We see the African elephant. And we see the Siberian tiger. This is called Grevy zebra. The orangutan. Here we have a specific kind of frog. This is called the tree frog. And we have the giant panda. And the bighorn ram. The bald eagle. And this is called the silver spot butterfly from San Francisco, the San Francisco silver spot butterfly. And there's the black rhinoceros. Again, Andy Warhol, he loved animals. I just noticed in the chat, someone mentions that the colors seem kind of unrealistic. He loved to play and experiment with colors, and he made them so vibrant that you have to look at them. I think it was a way of getting people's attention on the issues. And once their attention was drawn, then they found out what was happening to these beautiful creatures. All right, now we're heading to the other room. Oh my gosh, there's Warhol, a little glimmer. Tabitha's did a selfie. Okay, this piece is called 10 Portraits of Jews in the 20th Century. This was exhibited at the New York's Jewish Museum in Brooklyn. Warhol referred to this as the Jewish Geniuses Project. Warhol used images from media and libraries to create these screen prints. It was 1980 and all the subjects were already deceased. As a Jewish woman, I confess that it makes me proud to see the contributions that these Jewish men and women made to the world. Even though Jews make up a small percentage of the world population, their contributions are certainly substantial. And these were popular with collectors and profitable for the artist. I want to show you who's who. Okay, this is Golda Meir. She's the former Prime Minister of Israel. I remember her from when I was a little girl, and I'd see her on the news, and she always had a cigarette in her hand. She smoked like a chimney, chain smoker. You never saw one without a picture without her having a cigarette. This is Franz Kafka. He was a Czechoslovakian novelist. Next to Kafka, we have George Gershwin. He's a famous American pianist and a composer of popular music. You all know who Albert Einstein is, I'm sure. This is Sarah Bernhardt. She was a French stage actress, very famous. Let's see. Oh yes, it's not clear, but this is, yeah, if you can pull back a little bit, you can see his face. Martin Buber, who was an Austrian philosopher. And we have Sigmund Freud from Austria, also, who was the founder of psychoanalysis. Here we have the Marx Brothers. Interesting to note that Jews were very involved in entertainment from early on. You all remember the Three Stooges. They were Jewish too. And you can see Harpo and Groucho and Oh my gosh, I can't remember the third one's name. Oh, and who is this? I'm sorry. This is Gertrude Stein, who was an American novelist and an art collector of some renown. And this was Louis Brandeis. He was the first Jewish person to serve as Associate Justice on the Supreme Court. Okay, I guess we're ready to move on to silver clouds. There's a comment in the chat. Do the colors represent? Did he choose them intentionally? And absolutely. Andy Warhol was a colorist. He was extremely intentional and experimental with his color schemes. Silver clouds. I think our camera lady wants to play with them. These floating silver rectangular balloons are filled with just the right proportions of air and helium. This mixture gives the balloons enough buoyancy to stay off the ground, but not enough for them to float to the ceiling out of reach. Silver clouds challenges the idea that art is meant to be only viewed and appreciated from a distance, not to be touched. Instead, Warhol invites the viewers to become physically engaged with the art. He is showing us that art can be fun, spontaneous, exciting, and free from traditional rules. If you were here in person, you'd see the reflection of yourself in these balloons, but distorted, like being at a carnival funhouse. It's interesting to note that silver is a metal, which we think of as heavy, but these silver clouds are a floating contradiction of this perception. Silver was Andy Warhol's very favorite color. His studio in New York City, which he called the factory, had walls that were completely lined with aluminum foil, giving the space an energy, a vibe that for Warhol was inherently glamorous. Be there and play with them too. This is a portrait of Andy Warhol himself. You'll notice that he's covering his face with his hand and the rest of it is in shadow. You wonder why he's doing that. Why is he hiding? Is it shyness or self-consciousness? There's a quote beside the portrait that says, This quote, "What you see in my art on the surface, that's all there is. There's nothing more." That's it. Ha! Nothing could be further from the truth. There's a long, expansive, complicated story behind Andy Warhol and his art. In closing, I just want to say that Warhol was a pioneer in making it okay to be different. I want to thank the Memorial Art Gallery and give great thanks to NTID's Dyer Art Center, the two of you, for collaborating and making this virtual tour possible. In American Sign Language, no less. Thank you so much for your support. You've been nothing but supportive all the way through. And thank you to Judy Molnar, who's been my voice interpreter. We rehearsed a lot together, and I'm grateful for that. And thank you to Tabitha, who's behind the camera, showing us the museum and showing us these beautiful pieces. Can you show yourself, Tabitha, again one more time? Oh, there she is. Yay. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. Good night. Farewell. You can see the chair upside down. That's actually Wendell Castle's piece. You can see that chair upside down. It's on a pillow. You see that one? It's not actually a pillow. It looks like a pillow. It looks so soft, but it's made of wood. That's a good example of how you can fool the eye. It's the interpreter doesn't know, but Jacques used a French phrase that means fool the eye, but the interpreter doesn't know the French. So sorry about that, hearing people. I think that the Memorial Art Gallery is such a gem in this town. Just look at what you can come and see. Trompe-l'œil is the term, fool the eye. Trompe-l'œil. Thank you, Sydney. Bye-bye, everyone.